One of the few publicly traded crypto banks, Silvergate takes crypto deposits and issues Bitcoin-backed loans. The stock rallied when Bitcoin rallied and has been falling alongside Bitcoin's drop. KBW calls the pullback overdone and a buying opportunity and is upgrading the stock to outperform. Could this be an under-the-radar way to play the crypto craze? Let's ask the analyst behind the call. Michael Perito is digital banks analyst at KBW, a Stifel company. Michael, it's good to have you here. So why today? Why outperform?
Yeah, Kelly, thanks for having me on. So, I think with Silvergate, we've covered the stock for a few years now, and historically, these periods of lower sentiment around crypto asset values have created really great buying opportunities for the Silvergate stock. As a bank, Silvergate's deposits and revenues are tied to the growth of institutional adoption of crypto, but aren't tied to the underlying asset values themselves. So while sentiment can sometimes capture Silvergate when it's weaker, we still think that there's really strong opportunities for the bank to grow revenues. Secondly, it's by far one of the most asset-sensitive banks we cover at KBW. They have a ton of cash on the balance sheet and a really low-cost deposit structure, and they really will benefit in a material way when short-term rates begin to move higher, later this quarter potentially. So, we view the sentiment and the rates as a great entry point here for a pretty high-growth name historically.
The stock is up 7% today, and it's doubled over the past year. But explain to me, if they issue Bitcoin-backed loans, what happens to their balance sheet when the value of Bitcoin drops by 40%?
It's a great question, and I think one of the beautiful things of the crypto margin lending that they do, relative to a traditional equity margin line that we might be more familiar with, is the crypto trading markets never close. So they really have an ability to monitor collateral in real time and also utilize a certain group of custody partners so they have access to the underlying collateral as well. So in many ways, we would go as far as say that the risk factors around these Bitcoin collateralized loans could actually be lower, believe it or not, than traditional equity markets, which have more counterparty risk given the lack of real-time nature. So, it's a pretty underpenetrated asset class, and we think Silvergate has quite a runway to grow over the next couple of years with their, Bitcoin collateralized lending.
Sure, although I can also understand that to the extent that crypto is underperforming, maybe it's a little bit less attractive and kind of trades in tandem with that. I know you say otherwise. I was curious about the stablecoin issue, which could be a help for now, has kind of been a hindrance because it's stuck in regulatory purgatory. What are your expectations there, and how much would that help the company?
So stablecoins are really an upside opportunity for our thesis. It only makes up a couple percent of our forward earnings forecast. It's not really represented in a material way. As you correctly pointed out, Kelly, I think there are some regulatory holdups, but we were pretty encouraged by the president's working group around stablecoins. We think that banks will have a role as stablecoin issuers, given their high, their capitalized balance sheets and high level of regulatory oversight. And I think if anyone understands the benefit of being the first mover, it's Silvergate, who's really was one of the first banks to start accepting crypto deposits. And we expect them to have a pretty active role as stablecoin issuance and the banking sector kind of merge in future quarters. And we view it as a pretty compelling fee and deposit opportunity that really would be on top of our thesis today, which is more centered around the lower sentiment and higher interest rates.
Yeah, and finally, quickly, Michael, if you're correct that this is a bank that can do well when crypto is doing well, but also do well when it's not so much, but there are other positive factors that are helping it, like the rate environment, what are the catalysts that you think could help offset if crypto does have a weaker year? Why could Silvergate still do well?
So, I think we've often talked about Silvergate as being, it's the highest regulated crypto entity in the world in some cases, right? Because a lot of crypto companies or companies that are involved in crypto really don't have a final version of regulation. Whereas Silvergate, they're oversaw by the Fed and the FDIC. I mean, that's one of the most onerous regulatory environments any financial company can have. And so, when we talk about them doing well in a multitude of crypto environments, I think you have to understand where their growth is coming from, and that's really institutional adoption.
Yeah.
Their customers are all institutions, and they have 1,300 customers today. On Coinbase Prime today, there's almost 10,000 institutional customers. So we think there's a lot of runway for growth, particularly for a bank like Silvergate that really has a strong network effect in a really nascent crypto industry.
All right. Well, the stock's already up 900% since the pandemic began, but you have a 225 price target, which is some pretty healthy upside, about 75% upside, in fact. Michael, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Kelly.
Michael.